Well, how are you? Thank you for joining me again. I all I can say is that these are horrible times. These are desperate times for so many people, and it's not necessarily going to get better. What do I do to keep myself cheered up? Besides thinking about Donald Trump no longer being president, and also the coronavirus being over, and going back to some of the good times we had before, and fighting the good fight in the future. What else do I do? One thing I do, and I recommend this to you. It's music, golden oldies but goodies from the 1950s, Motown, even dancing. I mean, get up from where you are right now. Do a little dance. I know. We're going to talk about Trump and everything else today, and then I'm going to take your questions, and we're going to do a poll. But you have to get in the mood, right? Enough of Rockin' Robin. Look, I do want to talk about what Trump tried to do over the weekend to deflect attention. He's always trying to deflect attention from the pandemic, from the fact that there are at least 30 or 40 million people who are unemployed. One out of every 5 Americans is now without a job. One out of every 4 Americans is in serious danger of simply not having enough money to pay the rent or get through what they need to get through. I don't know if this means that I am with you or not. You can't tell. I just can't tell. I'm really tempted to dance again, but this is not working. Well, you say that. Well, am I live again? Can you actually see me? I'm now. Obviously there are forces out there, maybe Vladimir Putin and others, that would rather that I not actually do this broadcast with you because it is too dangerous for them. But are you able to see me? I mean, I did you get my dance? Did you at least get that? That's really the essence of today's message. No, there are a couple of other things in addition. Uh, I wanted to talk really with you about Trump's end run around Congress. It is perhaps the most dictatorial effort he's made. He doesn't care about the Constitution, obviously. He's never even, barely heard of the Constitution. But a lot of this needs, and you need to understand the context. In March, the House of Representatives, Democrats in the House, did lead the way and got the Senate reluctantly and the White House reluctantly and Trump reluctantly to go along with the first CARES Act, which provided $600 a week in extra federal unemployment benefits and did a lot of other things. But it ended on the 31st, and everybody knew it would end on the 31st of July. And that's why Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats on May 15th, now remember this date because May 15th, it was as far back as May 15th, they extended that $600 a week in extra unemployment benefits, all the way through the end of the year, all the way through January. And they also provided $1 trillion to state and local governments because state and local governments are running out of money. And they are on the front line. They are desperately in need of additional funding in order to deal with education and schools reopening, in order to deal with healthcare and all of the frontline demands that the pandemic is making. But Trump didn't want to do it. And Mitch McConnell did not want to do it. Mitch McConnell said, I'm not going to fund those blue states. I'm not going to give a blue state bailout. Do you remember that? Remember Mitch McConnell talking about a blue state bailout? And so Mitch McConnell was sort of refusing to do anything for 3 months. And there he is, old Mitch. Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch. Don't call him that. He gets very upset. So Mitch McConnell did nothing. And what did that mean? That meant that the Democrats' bill was hanging out there. Everybody knew everything would run out July 31st. But nevertheless, the Republicans did nothing, and the Trump White House did nothing. They let the clock run out. And then came the 31st of July, and all of the unemployment and all of the extra benefits and all of the additional money that was going to states, the PPP program for small business, all of that ended. Okay? So where are we now? Trump says Saturday from his exclusive golf club, and you can only get a membership, by the way, to his golf club where he made this announcement. You pay $350,000 to get a membership. This is Trump's, I can't even remember the number of times he's now gone to a golf club. I mean, taxpayers have spent something in the order of $130 million so far supporting Trump's golf trips, but that's not the point. He said that he was going to extend unemployment benefits through executive order and some memoranda, and he was going to provide an eviction moratorium. He was going to do all kinds of things. Well, he can't do that. By the Constitution, he cannot appropriate dollars. A president does not have the power to appropriate money. And, the thing is that he then says that he's going to repurpose money. Repurpose. What does that mean, repurpose? Presidents don't repurpose money. Money is appropriated by the House, and it cannot be repurposed regardless of what a president wants. He tried to do this before with the wall. You remember that? But this is even more absurd because he's taking money from the Federal Emergency Management Agency and trying to repurpose a lot of that money, which means that in hurricane season, for example, FEMA is not going to even have the money it needs to respond to hurricanes and any other emergencies around the country. And this is not only a weather era, a time of emergency, but there are a lot of other pandemic related emergencies. So he's not going to, where is this money coming from? It's only going to last, by the way, even if he were successful, it's only going to last for 5 weeks. This is not an extension, and it's only $400 per week. It's not $600 per week. And the states, he wants the states to kick in an extra $100 per week. So it comes up to $400 per week. But the states, remember, the states don't have any money. The states are running out of money. So the states are not going to do this. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a complete fabrication. This is another Trump hoax. And then he wants to throw the payroll tax in and have a payroll tax deduction. Well, that's not going to work either, because either he threatens Social Security and Medicare by reducing payroll taxes, because that's what Social Security and payroll tax and Medicare depend on, or it is an utter hoax because it's not going to actually be withheld. It is going to be withheld in any event. The businesses know that it's a hoax, and businesses know that it's going to have to be repaid anyway. So they're not going to go along with it. And there is no money for schools at a time when everybody is worried about coronavirus, the pandemic. In our schools, Trump is not going to provide any money. There is no money for states and for local governments. There is nothing there. There's no there. He talks about protecting people from evictions. There is nothing there to protect anybody from evictions. All right? I'm starting to get a little bit pissed off right now because this is a hoax. It's a diversion. What he ought to be doing right now, and what the Democrats and the Republicans ought to be sitting down. The Republicans, what is Mitch McConnell doing? Mitch McConnell is doing nothing. Mitch McConnell still refuses to sit down with the Democrats. So this is a matter of, well, how can we say this? This is worse than a hoax. This is cruel and unusual in the sense that the public is now being let out to dry. 30 million Americans have no income. We are in the deepest depression since the Great Depression of the 1930s. We have a pandemic. 160,000 Americans have died so far. And what is Donald Trump doing? He's doing absolutely nothing. He's playing games. What are the Republicans doing? They're doing nothing. They are playing games. And don't believe for a second that this is just the Democrats are, what he wants to do is to say the Democrats are at fault. Democrats are not at fault. The Democrats have put a proposal on the table 3 months ago, and the Republicans refused to come up with anything. Mitch McConnell and the Republicans couldn't even come up with a counter proposal. There is nothing there. There's no there, folks. So if you're not a little bit annoyed at this, maybe you don't know what is going on. I think you do know what is going on, and you ought to be outraged, and they ought to be held accountable. All of them, not just Donald Trump and his end run, his hoax end run around the legislative process, but also every Republican in Congress and every Republican in the Senate who is subjecting Americans to this kind of, well, it is a kind of torture right now, and subjecting the American economy. Because you see, if there's no stimulus, and there is no stimulus, the American economy is slowing down. This is something Donald Trump doesn't want to admit, and Larry Kudlow, his economic guru, is not going to admit, but the American economy had a little bit of a bump in June, and now it's going down again. And it's not going down again because of closure orders. It's going down again because the coronavirus is taking off again. We are out of control here in the United States. So let me just ask you, I want to do a poll now, so I can just calm down. Calm down. I'll go back to dancing. Did you get any of that dancing? I really wanted you to dance. All right, here's a poll, and the poll is very, very simple. I would like you, and there should be a poll, an opportunity for you to vote. And the question is, what should House Democrats do now on the coronavirus relief bill? And here are three options for you, and please vote. A, they should do nothing. They've already put their proposal out, so their $3 trillion proposal, do nothing. Option B is sue Donald Trump for exceeding his presidential authority, for acting like a dictator, for appropriating funds, essentially, when he doesn't have any funds to appropriate. That's number B, sue Trump. And C is compromise. Say, instead of $3 trillion, okay, we'll go with $2 trillion and make that your final compromise offer. So what do you think? A, do nothing, let them stew in their juices, in effect, or B, sue Trump for exceeding his presidential authority, or C, compromise on $2 trillion instead of $3 trillion. So let us have the results of that poll, and we'll show it to you a little. You know, we did a poll last week. Do you remember that poll last week? That was, who is doing most damage to America right now? And you had several options. Actually, a total number of you, 22,251 of you, voted in this. And who is harming America most? Well, it turns out that 70% of you thought Mitch McConnell was harming America most. And we're talking about other than Trump, obviously. And I was pretty impressed. I think you're absolutely right. Hopefully Mitch McConnell will not be there to harm America, because he'll be out of office after January 20th. By the way, upcoming election, let's get into that, because there have been a lot of questions, and this week there will be a lot more about the upcoming election. First of all, very, very important. Don't miss this. Hugely important report came out from the director of counterintelligence, a fellow named Evanima, William Evanima, I should say. And his counterintelligence report, director of counterintelligence in the United States government, he was appointed by Donald Trump. What did he say? He said Russia is doing everything it can to help defeat, denigrate Biden. Russia is trying to denigrate, he used the term denigrate, Joe Biden. Well, this presumably should be big news, right? Because Trump has said nothing about this. I mean, and Trump is not even talking about Russia putting a bounty on the heads of Americans in Afghanistan. This is important stuff. We also know from William Evanima, we know that Andrei Durkok, this is a very, very important name as well, Andrei Durkok, who is in the Ukraine. He's a pro-Russian Ukrainian member of parliament, and he is spreading false rumors about Biden. So he, according to the counterintelligence director, you've got Russia denigrating Biden, and this fellow Andrei Durkok, who is in Ukraine, who is also spreading false rumors about Biden. But one thing that was not said, and you need to understand this because it's critical, is that who is it that Andrei Durkok has been dealing with quite a lot over the last several months? A man named Rudolph Giuliani. Giuliani has been there in Ukraine. He has been dealing with Andrei Durkok, stirring up the waters, getting Durkok to do these dirty deeds. Another thing that Evanima did not mention that is critically important is that Senator Ron Johnson, Republican Senator Ron Johnson, is at this moment launching a probe of Joe Biden based upon all of this junk that's coming out of Russia and coming out of people like Andrei Durkok. So here you have Trump's own counterintelligence director, William Evanima, saying Russia is trying to denigrate Biden and be warned about that. And Andrei Durkok is trying to dig up dirt on Biden, and it's all bullshit. And at the same time, he doesn't mention, but we know that Rudolph Giuliani is there in Russia and in Ukraine, working with Andre Durkock, and you have Ron Johnson, Senator Johnson, who is using all of this crap to try to build a case against, in the United States, here in the election, against Joe Biden, based upon nothing, based upon this bullshit. Okay, the only other thing I want to mention with regard to the upcoming election, it is going to be a bigger and bigger issue. And again, the purpose of these Monday meetings is to provide context and kind of focus on what the big issues are. Louis DeJoy. Have you heard of Louis DeJoy? He is the Postmaster General. He got the job because he was a major Trump supporter. There he is. Even in a mask with the United States Postal Service. He paid $2 million at least as a Trump donor to get the job, maybe to get the mask. But he paid $2 million as a Trump donor to get the job of Postmaster General. Well, what's he done? Well, the only thing he really has done, and he's done this over the last month, is he's cut the budget of the Postal Service. That is, cut the costs of the Postal Service, and that has meant increasing delays. Maybe you've already noticed this. Packages that you want through USPS or mail, your mail is being delayed. Why is he doing this? Does this have anything to do with the fact that Trump does not want mail-in ballots? He doesn't want people to vote by mail in this pandemic? What else are we going to do? You know, Trump puts out these tweets. He says, mail-in ballots are bad. Absentee ballots are fine. Mail-in ballots are bad. Well, they're the same thing. Mail-in ballots and absentee ballots are the same thing. But if you've got his handpicked donor who knows nothing about the post office, but he knows a lot about Trump, and he's for Trump, Louis DeJoy, what is he doing? He's delaying the mail. He also recently told the states that the ballots that are mailed in are going to have 55-cent stamps, first-class stamps on them, not the 22-cent bulk rate. All right? So it's going to cost, this is like a poll tax. It's going to cost people more to vote. And here's something else you might have not known about Louis DeJoy. He owns $30 million to $75 million in assets of competitors, private for-profit competitors of the United States Postal Service. Need I say more? You see, Trump is trying to set this whole thing up so that after the election, presumably he loses, but he can contest it. He can claim fraud. He can say those mail-in votes should not be counted. He is already threatening. I mean, Arizona, Nevada, I should say. Nevada, just a few days ago, the Nevada legislature passed a piece of legislation saying that everybody can vote absentee and there will be mail-in. And what was Trump's response? He said, "See you in court." All right, see you in court. He's been using words like coup. He's calling it a coup, a fraud. He's used the word fraud. He's used corruption. He uses all those words over and over again. He's setting this thing up. He wants doubt to be spread about the integrity of the United States election, about our election system. He's doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin. I mean, what does Putin want? Putin has been very, very clear. Not only does Putin want Trump again, but Putin wants to destabilize the United States. He wants to sow division in the United States, and he wants to weaken NATO. Those are the big Putin goals. And that's exactly what Trump has been doing now for years. And that's what he's going to do again. And that's what he's doing right now. And that's what Putin wants. Can there be any doubt about this, folks? So you got to vote. You got to get everybody else to vote. You cannot be cynical about the purpose and the integrity of this election. That's what he wants you to be. No. We have got to vote like our lives depended on it, because our lives do depend on this. All right. Your questions. You've got a lot of questions. A lot of questions have come in, and I thank you for that. Although I really, really, really want to go back to dancing. After this is over, I'm going to put that. Do you know, by the way, that was Rockin' Robin. And that was a recording made in 1958 by Bobby day. Anybody remember? I mean, yeah, okay, it's a long time ago. I'm showing my age. Carolina Felicia, your question. What I want to know is what this payroll tax change actually means. What are the actual ramifications for Social Security and Medicare down the road? Is Trump really allowed to do this on his own? Carolina, one of two things, all right? Either uh, the, the suspension of payroll taxes, this is what Trump is proposing or wants to do, is actually going to hurt Social Security and Medicare. It can't help. I mean, I used to be a trustee of the Social Security and the Medicare trust funds. For my sins in life, I was a trustee, and I would go to these meetings, and the people who ran the Social Security and Medicare trust funds would tell me, and I'd look at the numbers, and I'd look at the numbers, and I'd look at the numbers. I can tell you that there's no doubt, if in fact Social Security taxes are cut, then Social Security and Medicare are in jeopardy. The payroll tax is Social and Medicare. The other option, either it's that, or the whole thing is going to have no effect whatsoever because companies are going to continue to withhold because they think that somewhere down the line they're going to have to repay it. That's it. This is why this is either dangerous or it's a hoax. Joan Lafave, you say, I just read an article that said there's no incentive for Republicans to come to the negotiating table because the stock market is doing so well, which primarily benefits their donors, the Republican donors. Well, the stock market is within 2% of its high before the pandemic. It shows you really what Trump's economics is all about. Trumponomics is all about the stock market. But what you've got to keep in mind is that, as I said, 1 out of 5 Americans right now, 30 million adult Americans, 1 out of 5 adult Americans, 30 million have no jobs. And more Americans are falling into poverty. And the best estimate I've seen is that 1 out of 4 is very close to either losing a home or even being hungry. And we have a lot of kids as well. This statistic is almost too hard to get your head around. The stock market is not the economy. The stock market, the top 1% owns 50% of the shares of stock in the United States stock market that all American households own. The top 10% own 90% of all of the shares of stock owned by American households. So the stock market has nothing to do with Americans. B. Warren, what do you think of Bernie's pandemic wealth tax proposal? B, I think it's completely appropriate because you've got people who are at the top who are earning unbelievable amounts of money. The billionaires in America, since the pandemic started, have increased their wealth by something in the order of $484 billion. I mean, even just one billionaire, Jeff Bezos, has increased his own wealth 39%. He made in one day a couple of weeks ago, $13 billion that one day. So obviously, this is a windfall profit time. We used to have, and we still have on the books officially, we have laws against price gouging. We have laws against windfall profits, certainly in wartime, and this can be analogous to wartime. We have laws against monopolization. We have laws that would permit the federal government to respond to these extraordinary profits and these extraordinary gains. So yes, Bernie Sanders, a pandemic wealth tax is completely consistent with our history in this regard. Peggy Emmons, how is it not a conflict of interest that Trump appointed the head of United States Postal Service owns millions of dollars in competing private mail companies? Well, as I said, it is a conflict of interest. And spread the word. Spread the word. Nate Mann, you say we should have a bigger stimulus, but can we afford all of this spending? How will all of the debt affect us over the long term? Nate, don't fall for these deficit hawks that suddenly in the Republican Party are coming out of the woodwork. Where were they when the Republicans passed this almost $2 trillion tax cut for the wealthy and for big corporations? Where were they when, in fact, there was, even in the CARES Act, there were multi-billion-dollar giveaways to big corporations and the wealthy. You know, if they were really concerned about the deficits, they would rake back, claw back all of those tax benefits. If they were really concerned about the deficits, they wouldn't give the military. I mean, the defense appropriations have been expanded. They've been bloated. They've over the last 4 years, the Trump years, $2.8 trillion has gone to the Defense Department and to military needs in this country. If you are a deficit hawk, there are a lot of other things you can do other than hurt average working people and average American families who right now are so desperate and need help. Well, I'm gonna. We have the. All right, we've got the poll results. Remember, the poll was what should Democrats do right now, and A was do nothing, and B was sue Trump for exceeding his presidential authority. 59% of you actually think the Democrats ought to do B, and C. 32% of you think that they should compromise. Democrats compromise on the coronavirus relief, go down from $3 trillion down to $2 trillion. Let me just say that I am of the mind that Democrats should not fall into the trap. I think Trump is setting a trap here. I think Trump would like the Democrats to sue him, because then he can go back and say, well, they don't even want you people of America, to get any money whatsoever. So it's kind of jujitsu. No, I think the Democrats should either do nothing right now, stick to their guns on $3 trillion, or maybe they say, okay, we'll compromise on $2 trillion, but we want to make sure that everybody gets $600 extra a week right through. That is, everybody who's unemployed all the way through January. We're not going to compromise on money for schools and money for cities and states. We're not going to compromise on evictions, and let Trump come up with, and the Republicans come up with a reason they won't even compromise on that. That's jujitsu. That's really jujitsu. All right. I've spent enough time. I'm sorry that this didn't quite work out technically as we had wished, but it's great to talk with you. And don't forget to dance. Have a good week. Hang in there. Keep fighting. Remember, Election Day is coming faster than you can even imagine. It's, 84 days away, 83 days away. But remember, get an absentee ballot. Make sure that you are registered to vote. Do everything in your power to make sure that everybody else votes. Stay careful. Be careful of yourself. Stay healthy. Be safe. And I'll talk to you next week.